Hello, everybody, and welcome into another preview video here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And we are up to the New York Islanders. I've got a couple writers from the Islanders writing team here, Michael Ostrower and Mike Fink, two Michaels. As we're going through our season previews here, Michael, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, depending on when everyone's watching this, the season could be tomorrow. But hopefully, everything starts really quick because we're recording this in the off season and it's starting to get really annoying with with hockey not on. But Mike, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's August, so we're right now as we're recording, so chugging along for content ideas. But yeah, season's kind of around the corner now with the off season and all the big moves in the rearview mirror. Now it's time to look forward a bit to what we got in store.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Islanders, last season made the playoffs when it didn't look like they were going to at times during the season. It looked like they were going to miss it. But they still made some big changes throughout the season. They fired their head coach, replacing Patrick Waugh, who's going to get his first training camp with the team and first season. Hopefully, I don't think he's getting fired. I would assume he won't be. But it's always big for a new coach getting a full training camp and getting his systems in place right from day one. So that's going to be a big thing going forward here for the Islanders. Part of the draft, they got a first round pick for the first time in a long time. They actually drafted someone and got a pretty good guy in Cole Eiserman. So overall, their season was pretty good. Draft got some promising player. So let's just dive into our forward group to start. Not many changes. Anthony Duclair is the only big name being added, but you got pretty much the core coming back with Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal, and guys that had a pretty good season last season. Bo Horvat really good first full season with the team. And Duclair could add something. So I'll start with you, Michael. What do you think about this forward group? Is it good enough right now? What do you think about the group overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. It really depends how you look at the team because under Wall, the Islanders were a 100 point pace in the standings group, and Horvat and Barzal obviously had a lot of chemistry together. Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri played really well alongside one another, but outside of that, left wing, first two lines, lots of question marks. Bottom six, lots of question marks. And I think Duclair definitely helps aid some of the questions. He has speed, he has a good shot, he has that 25 goal upside. 50-point upside, especially if he's on that first line. So I think that, the top six is in a pretty good spot. I'd say probably above league average and will suit the Islanders well, but we really have no idea what the bottom six will look like. And I think you know, that'll be a big difference in where the team ends up in the standings. You could have, countless different line combinations. I mean, you have probably seven or eight guys who could be playing in the bottom six. You have a few AHLers who are hoping to earn spots in the bottom six. So really, it'll be interesting to see how Law deploys, his depth pieces early on, especially preseason training camp and to start the season. And you have a lot of guys who could have great seasons. Wallstrom, Holmstrom, both Pajot, all three could have 20 plus goal campaigns, or both of them could be in their last seasons on Long Island. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, they still got a pretty good first line when you look at it. That had a really good season and it seemed like Barzal and Horvat really connected together and could potentially do even more this season. You'd hope so because Horvat's still in that really long-term deal. You're hoping he can still do what he's been doing. But yeah, it is a group that's going to be interesting to watch because I think like I say, the top six is probably pretty good. But when you're looking at the other guys, I'm not really sure. But they were really good with Waz, so maybe a full season we'll see. Mike, what do you think about the forward group? Is there anything you want to kind of add? Concerns maybe about the group going into the season?
It is crazy to think about how it's flip-flopped from a few years ago. A few years ago, when Barry Trotz was running the team, the story was they don't have a great top end of their roster and it was all depth. Now it's the opposite where you
Yeah.
have Barzell, Horvat, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri. They were basically contributing most, if not all, the offense, and the rest of the offense falls off. And there's two layers to I think their problems. One is obviously depth, where after those top two lines, after those top four skaters, where is the offense coming from? Where are the goals coming from? And you have skaters who's like, you can maybe squint and see, let's say Anders Lee, if he can turn back the clock a bit, even though all the signs are pointing against that, or if Simon Holmstrom keeps getting, well, really, if he just keeps playing on the penalty kill, because that's where all his goals are coming from. But it's the funniest oddity. But anyway, that's the first issue, that they don't have, there's no depth. You don't know where it's coming from. And then the other part, which is kind of a bigger issue, is they don't have a lot of skaters that can beat you in multiple ways, which I think really shows its ugly head when the playoffs roll around. When they play a team like the Hurricanes, which they've done 2 years in a row, where really when they play the good teams, which half the Eastern Conference is now, where once they force Horvat, hey, Horvat, you can't just be a shooter. You got to create offense as a passer. Or you need Barzal to really start shooting, which he did last year, and that made him an all-star. Once you ask those skaters to adapt and become more versatile, they don't have that, which also is why you want them to make a move at the deadline. You want them to add a versatile winger who can do all these things. But that's the second layer to it. I mean, you could also kind of dive into the power play, which has just been awful for years. But that goes without saying. We just are like, yeah, they might as well decline the penalty, but we can't do that in hockey. But if they could, they would. It's been that bad.
Yeah, it's sometimes you don't want to watch foul play. It's like, no, please, no, I don't want it. We'll just we'll play 5-on-5. We play better there.
I think there was one time Butch Goring said that on a broadcast. He was like, they should just decline this penalty, because they were like 0 for 4, and I think they allowed a goal. And it's one of those. There are teams like that. The Islanders have become that. Hopefully this year, actually, if Dobson's just playing that power play point man number one, that it does change a bit. But yeah, that's the other layer, I guess, the offense.
All right. Well, you mentioned Noah Dobson. Move to the defense, and he's leading the way. He's probably not probably. He is their best defenseman. Top pairing, and really came into his own this past season. And looking to take a next step this season. So I'll start with you. I'll stay with you, Mike, on the defense. What do you think about it? I mean, I don't think they added anyone on the D group. It's still the same.
Riley.
Riley, well, he was re-signed. He did play towards the end, right? So, I mean, overall, they're pretty much the same group. What do you think? Is this group good enough for this season, or do they need something else?
It's one of those glass half full, glass half empties. If you think that Scott Mayfield really was hurt last year and really could not play on that, we had leg, I think it was an ankle issue or lower body injury that just held him back. If you think that really was the reason why he was not playing well the entire season, and he was a liability, he had to miss the second half, and you see him coming back, and you see Pelican Pollock not turning back the clock, but returning to what we've seen them in the past few years, this defense is a lot better. And part two of that is when Patrick Waugh came in, the defense was structured, they played disciplined, and really just a complete reversal of what they looked like under Lambert. If you could say that's what happened and this is what you're going to see, you could look at this defense as being one of the better defensive units in the NHL, not a top 5 unit, but a top 10 unit. But the reality is right now is Mayfield, he's on the decline. He hasn't really played. He really hasn't been playing as well as he was a few years ago. You could even go back to when Barry Trotz was their coach. He's I think now 31, and that contract looks real bad. Just signed a 7-year deal, and you might have to buy it out sooner rather than later, which is not what you want. And Pelican Pollock, each of the last 2 seasons, they've battled injuries, and they have not looked the same. They've not been that top pairing. It's really been Alexander Romanov and Noah Dobson. So right now, I'd say the unit isn't good enough. Mike Riley's being asked to basically be a top 4 defenseman with the injuries and the decline of some of the other skaters. And it is going to be an issue because unless those players are available, you might have to either A, look at the prospect pool, or B, maybe make a move. It's hard. The other part of it's hard to move on from some of these guys because all these long-term contracts with not a lot of with no movement clauses attached to them. So it is harder to move back. I would bet on Pelican Pollock returning to form. Mayfield, though, I don't know. I don't see it as much. But the good news is you have Dobson and Romanov playing more ice time. So that
Yeah,
does help, I'd
that's
say.
true. Mayfield's going. Yeah, I agree. I think he's the biggest question mark coming in. He signed to that massive deal that I didn't understand at the time, and I still don't understand. And he hasn't, of course, his first season in it, he's hurt. So it's we'll see if he can be a guy that can do something this season. Michael, moving to the goaltending, Ilya Sorokin. I mean, arguably, he still didn't have a really good season this past season. He kind of was taken over. Varlamov kind of took his spot at the end of the season there. Is that a big thing? Does Sorokin have to be the number one again? That star goaltender that he was, a Vezina Trophy caliber, not last season, but the season before. Is that the biggest thing? Because Varlamov is good, but I don't think he's the answer. Sorokin, you'd think Sorokin should be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, examining Sorokin's season last year and projecting him for this year, it's in my opinion, so interesting because I feel like he really didn't have too bad of a year. He just gave up a lot of really easy goals, shots from the point where he was screened and deflection got past him or just a mental lapse, and he was still pretty good on the high danger opportunities, breakaways, stuff like that that most goaltenders aren't saving. He still made those saves. And I think a lot of it will come down to having a healthier defense, and that'll really help him a lot on the penalty kill because I feel like that's really where he struggled, and the numbers kind of support that, where he was just he couldn't save anything on the penalty kill, and it was rough. And I think with Pellick and Pulak hopefully back fully healthy, even Mayfield who's been a staple on the penalty kill for a while, and getting Dobson off the unit, not like Dobson was bad, but just he was always fatigued, and letting him rest. I think Sorokin's due for a better year on the score sheet, and his numbers will look better. And I'm really not concerned. Like I think he's still at 28 or 29. He's still pretty young, and he's still obviously he has the ability to be the best goaltender in the NHL or top three at the very least. So I'm not too concerned there. And like you said with Varlamov, he was a good starter. I don't think he's good enough to take the Islanders to where they want to be, but I feel confident that if on the second night of back-to-backs or whatever, Varlamov can still steal wins. And I feel like we know what we're going to get from him. He's a staple goaltender, stable. He saves the obvious ones. He doesn't always make the flashy saves, but he'll give you a shot to win every night. So yeah, I think the goaltending's in a good spot, and Sorokin's just got to make the easy saves, and the defense has got to do their job too.
I mean, I still think he's a top. I want to say he's still like a top five goaltender in the league, even though he didn't have the best season last year. But the thing is, yeah, I agree. Defense makes a big difference for a goaltender, and those high danger chances, if he's saving them, that's a big thing. If you can reduce those amount, and he makes the saves that, of course, he should. That's again a top five goaltender. So we'll see. We'll see if he can do that. All right, talking about the division, the Metro is probably one of the tougher divisions and some interesting teams in it. I mean, you're looking at the top two are definitely the Hurricanes and the Rangers still, and the Islanders were third this past season. Then you got all the weird teams below them that you're not even sure. The Penguins, not sure where they're going to be this year. Capitals, same thing. The Devils should take a big boost, so they could be in that mix, now challenging for the third spot. Michael, what do you think about this Metro division?
Yeah, I mean,
Are the Islanders still that third team, or are they gonna drop?
they could be. They could be a third team. I think it depends a lot more how other teams perform, than they do. I think you kind of know what you're going to get from the Islanders, and I think if any of the five teams below them takes the jump, like you said, it's going to be the Devils. New coaching, few new additions on the defense, and everyone should be healthy there. So I'd imagine they take the jump potentially even to the top two in the division. But from there, like I'm not really too concerned about the Blue Jackets or Flyers. Like pretty safe, and Penguins I don't think are there. And then I like some of the moves the Capitals made, but we'll see if they can build on last season and what Ovi does, and how Pierre-Luc Dubois does. So I feel pretty good about the Islanders being the top half of the division. I'd be more so concerned about the Atlantic Division for the wild card spots, and
Yeah.
if those spots are going to be attainable with 93 or 94 points like they were last season, or if it's going to take, 97 or 98 points. So that's where my attention will be the whole year, that wild card race.
Yeah, the Atlantic is talk about tough. They're probably one of the tougher divisions to and interesting ones again, that bottom half with the Sabres and Senators and Red Wings all supposed to take steps forward, yet they can't seem to. So one of these years they will, and you're gonna have it really interesting. Mike, do you agree? Is that where the Islanders are? Are they the third?
Yeah, and the more Michael talked about it, the more I agree that the Metro isn't that strong as I think people, when they
Yeah.
usually look at it, usually I think it's really good. You have the Blue Jackets who have really been a mess the past few years. The Flyers are going to be an interesting team just because they looked good the first half, but fell apart in the second half. So, and you could say they're still rebuilding. So we'll see what happens there. But the Islanders are in that mix with, I mean, if the Devils have the ceiling floor type, are the ceiling floor type of team where they could be the second or third, or even the best team in that division, or they could also struggle again if the same issues happen for them this year. The Islanders are in the middle of that group. Last year, I said I think the Rangers are taking a step back, and they took a step forward. So I think, so with that in mind, I think the Rangers are going to easily walk away with the President's Trophy. No struggles at all, no issues with their roster. They're going to easily no, so the Islanders have no chance of catching up to them, obviously, but they're going to be, there's the Rangers, Hurricanes, then you have the Islanders and Devils in that mix, and then you really have to worry about the other. Well, you have the Atlantic Division, the wild card race, which last year was Elliot Friedman called it a crab race because no one was moving forward, everyone was moving sideways. No one was, so I think this year it's going to be a lot more competitive,
Yeah.
obviously. So that's really where your attention is if they are the fourth best team, is that enough to get them into the playoffs? And
Mhm.
bigger picture, is that even enough to make a cup run? Which I don't think it is. So that if that's your goal, then you really got to rethink things.
Yeah, the Atlantic I think is going to be the deciding factor with the Islanders, I think too. I agree with that too. All right, let's talk let's do some quick fire. And these are quick questions that first thing that comes to mind. I can have a little bit of explanation, but let's start here and biggest storyline or question mark going into 2024-25. And I'll start with you, Michael, on this one.
Um, I go Sorokin if he can really return to form, and we already talked about him, but yeah, if he can bounce back to that Vezina conversation.
What about you, Mike?
Depth. Where's it coming from? Where's the scoring? Where's the offense?
All right, a breakout star. Mike, I'll start with you.
Breakout star. I don't think. I think breakout player. We'll go with Kyle McLean. I think if he can be that fourth line center, great.
All right, Michael, what about you? I say maybe breakout. Someone that can break out doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
have to become a star, but
Um, I mean, I don't really think there are too many candidates. I think Duclair, first time in his career, he really feels comfortable on the team.
yeah, I can see that. And hopefully for his sake too, because he has bounced around a bit and he has a lot of talent. He just can't seem to completely do it consistently over a few seasons. All right, bounce back, and I'll stay with you, Michael. Who needs to bounce back this season?
Um, I mean, I think like we've talked about Sorokin, obviously, but I'll go Mayfield as
Hmm.
you know, as the other option.
Agreed. He definitely needs to. He has to stay healthy. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, I think that's a big enough bounce back for him. Mike, what about you?
You know what's funny is I said if Michael says Sorokin, I'm going to say Mayfield. He said Mayfield. I'm picking Sorokin. It's got to be Sorokin.
There you go.
There's your two
An
bounce
X
backs.
factor this season, and I'll stay with you, Mike, on that.
Brock Nelson, either A, he's close to a 40 goal scorer, key player on the second line, or B, he's the guy who's getting traded. He's one of the guys who gets traded. So he's really the X factor. Go either way. On the trade note, maybe Kyle Palmieri also because he's also a free agent. So same story out to a lesser degree.
All right, Michael, what do you?
I was gonna say the same exact thing, I think. Yeah, I think Brock Nelson needs to keep scoring. If he only scores 25 goals, which there's no reason to believe that'll happen, but if it does, like the Islanders are toast. And if he can
Yeah.
score 40 goals, the Islanders will be in the playoff race until the very end.
For sure. I think we said their top six is pretty good. And if he can definitely do that's a big thing. All right, let's shift to prospects and rookies. A couple questions here. Michael, I'll start with you. What is there a rookie or a prospect that could surprise and make the roster out of count?
No.
No.
I think I think someone who I watched a lot last year was Alex Jeffries, and he really impressed me. But I mean, there's just no room for him to earn
Sure.
a spot in the lineup, and especially no defensive prospects either. So maybe if a few injuries occur down the line, or if that bottom six really struggles, he could earn a call up. But if a new face earned the roster, earned an opening night roster spot out of the preseason, I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, there's not a lot of space for these guys. It'd have to be really impressive to force a trade or something, need them on the team. Mike, do you agree with that? Is there
Yeah.
not
I
really
mean,
anyone?
the other part is the farm system isn't that great. Bridgeport
Yeah.
wasn't that great last year. Uh, Jeffries had a cup of coffee with Bridgeport last year, so after a full season there, he might make it next year, or maybe an kind of April call up. But yeah, if I have to pick one, if I have to, it would be Dufour. If
Mm,
they're like, all right, he's ready, he's a good shooter on the wing, they'll call him up. It's him or Maggio are the top two
mm,
prospects. After that kind of falls off, so we'll go with
yeah.
Dufour.
All right. Now away from surprises, just prospects in general that everyone should be watching. There's an obvious one. We mentioned him at the top of the show. But Michael, who do you got that everyone should be watching this season?
I mean, like we said, the obvious ones, Eiserman. I mean, how can you not watch him? And he's just such a lethal shooter. And then another one, a lesser known prospect Quinn Finley
Mm,
of Wisconsin. He is such a good wrist shot. I think as a left wing playing NCAA, he's accessible for most Islanders fans to watch, even on TV. And he's someone that has a lot to work on. But if he can really take that next step for a Wisconsin team that lost a few players in their forward core, it'll be interesting to see how he can really capitalize on this opportunity and if he can make a serious run for a future NHL gig.
all right, Mike, you got anyone else that everyone should be watching here?
Yeah, I said Dufour, I said Maggio. There are some defensemen that are coming into Bridgeport. I think Isaiah George, Callio Delia, so you could monitor what they're gonna look like, Last year, for a few starts, Henrik Tikkanen was their goaltender, and I'm like, was watching him like, you get really excited when you see like a 6'7" goaltender who has flexibility like that, but it's such a random position. I'm like, you know what? We're not making any predictions on him yet. He's still like 23, I think. So, but he's fun to watch. I'll say that. So Bridgeport hopefully has some exciting games with him.
Yeah. I hope Bridgeport have a better team or
Yeah.
play better this coming season.
Yeah.
He's much more exciting to watch a team that's winning. All right, predictions. Michael, who's going to lead the team in scoring? There's again, two guys that are probably going to be, or actually, I guess there'd be a few guys, but who's going to lead the team?
Oh,
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 you,
Michael, yeah.
my
Did I say who was going to?
I
I
don't know.
couldn't tell. No, I think yeah. So I mean, for forwards, I think goals will be Brock Nelson with Bo Horvat being right there, and then points got to go Barzal. I mean, I'd be pretty surprised if it was someone else, at least on a per game basis. Defense, all Dobson, goals and points. Yeah, defense is pretty obvious, and then forward core has Horvat, Barzal, Nelson. Could be any of the three.
Mike, I'm sure you agree with that. I don't think there's
Yeah,
anyone.
it's Dobson, Barzell, those are your two. The one I would say is Horvat leads them in goals this year. He was close last year to leading them in
Hmm.
goals. So we'll go with him to lead. And even though it really could be him or Nelson who do it, I'll pick Horvat this year to lead them in goals.
All right, Mike, a bold prediction or a hot take for this season?
Bold prediction. I don't know how bold this is, but this one could be pretty good just because we're circling it. Patrick Waugh wins the Jack Adams. I hope I got the award right, not the G. I know there's a GM award. He wins the Jack Adams, a full training camp with the team. It's kind of similar. You get the similar vibes to if everything goes right. Rick Tocchet with
Mhm.
Vancouver, where after he got, we had that halfway, the abbreviated
Mhm.
stint with them halfway through the season, but then a full training camp gets that team ready from the beginning of the season, and they're just playing great across the board. So that's a bold one, although it's not really so bold because they don't give it to Rod Brind'Amour anyway.
No,
Like, even though he could win every year.
True. Michael, what about you? You got a bold prediction?
Yeah, I'll go Barzal 100 points and or 30 goals. I think he could be really, really good alongside Duclair if they really can click alongside one another.
Barzal, he hasn't had the same season as he had in his rookie season since then, right? He hasn't had
Last year was close. Last
Last
year
year
was
was
pretty
80
good.
points, 80 games. So
yeah,
I think the rookie season was 85 points. So
yeah. Yeah.
But last year he set a career high in goals. I think 23 by one.
Yeah,
So
by one goal from his
Yeah.
rookie season. So yeah, because he had 85, 80 this. Yeah,
I think
so he was a point a game this past season. So
I think one other bold one would be to say Dobson actually scores 20 goals because he's had 13, and then this last year he had 10. But if he just starts shooting the puck on net, getting that puck on net, then he'll get more goals there. So
yeah.
another
I
bold
feel
one.
like this season, last season, he had like 8 goals in the first 30 or so games, and then he kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
Maybe not,
Yeah.
but he started on fire.
yeah,
I think it might have been last one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, we'll see. I think Barzal definitely can push 100 points. I mean, especially if he shoots a lot more. I mean, he had a career high in shots this past season, so 240. So I mean that's something I think he's gonna need to do because he has a really good shot, but he seems to always pass the puck.
Last year it didn't. That's the big catch. Yeah.
There you go. All right, final thing. Now, where are they finishing? We've kind of danced around it being third in the division. Where are they going to finish in the overall standing? So, I guess in the East. Michael, where are they finishing?
I would be very surprised if they finish with something other than 87 to 95 points. I think we'll go 43 or 44 wins and 5 or 6 overtime losses to get to 92 or so points. I think that's a pretty safe area, plus or minus 3 points in the standings, and anything outside of that range, I would be, shocked.
Five or six overtime losses. That's the boldest prediction you said so far. They had like 20 overtime losses last year or something crazy number. They lost so that it's one of the things. They were the reason that people wanted the rule changed because they made the playoffs.
Yeah, because that was a reason why they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
No, it's also the Bruins. That was a big. I think the Bruins had like the most in the NHL. Something like that.
The Islanders definitely were up there. It's like 15.
Bruins shouldn't have they shouldn't have been where they were.
Under Wall, they were a bit better, I think.
Yeah,
it was like
I just want to check this because I was just shocked at how many they had. Okay, so they had
their big thing was blowing leads under Lambert to lose games in overtime, but even under Wall was just a lot of.
Okay, so the Islanders had 16, so they had one more than the Bruins. Bruins had 15 overtime losses. You take that away, they are now into the wild card race rather than second in the division. So, yeah, I don't like that rule. I think if you lose, you lose. You have no points. Nothing. Okay, I mean, do the Islanders make the playoffs with that though?
I mean, I think I'll put them at fourth in their division. That's where I would put them right now. And the question really is who in the Atlantic is better than them? I mean, I think you have your big 3 or 4. I mean, the question is Tampa take a step back or forward? I think they're kind of the question mark because their depth is also non-existent. So they have Gensel, so that helps them. But they're in that like fourth place range, which then you got to hope that there are 4 teams, not 5, that make it in the Atlantic. That's kind of where I would see them.
They're going to be a wild card or third in the division, just like pretty much what they were doing this past last season, where they were kind of bouncing around. So, it's going to be interesting to watch. I think all the other teams around them is what's going to make or break what's going to happen. But thanks, Michael. Thanks, Mike, for coming on the show, talking Islanders season coming up. Make sure to check out all of our stuff at thehockeywriters.com, the Substack. which brings all the articles together in your inbox a few times a week, and also the premium Substack, which a bunch of writers talk and write about a bunch of different things over at the Substack too, in the premium tier. So make sure checking that out. But until our next preview video, we'll see you next time.